How's it going, guys? My name is Doe, and I can't record here when the AC's on, so I have to wait for it to go off. It's great. Anywho, today's video is going to be about mastery, and I want to discuss some builds that I used to finish some objectives that were hard for me whenever I was first going through it. But in saying that, some things have changed, by the way. In case you guys haven't checked, since my most recent video, I think, about mastery, they made it to where you can now get some objectives done whether you're solo or on your team. Before, every objective was basically by yourself. If it was for staggers, wounds, and breaks. Now it's solo or team, which is great. That means like if your friend gets a wound, you get a wound. Before, if your friend got a wound, you got jack diddly. You got nothing. You got robbed. You basically got robbed. If you did all the wound damage except for the last hit and your friend just tapped it, they got the wound. But now everybody gets it and everybody happy. It's great. So the main thing for me is I'm going to give you guys some builds that make some of these objectives a bit faster if you're trying to level it quickly. If you're towards the end game though, I might make some builds that are for newer players. I'm just not exactly sure because I think that nowadays it's a bit easier to do this kind of stuff. But the hard part is you can't get wounds unless someone in your party is playing a warpike or if someone has acidic or barbed. That's sort of like how this goes. And also staggers are hard to come by because not every fight lasts that long to get more staggers, so it just depends. You can do things, but you can do things to make it to where you can just farm out specific things pretty efficiently. It just depends on what you want to do. Now, I do have a video discussing general advice for mastery, so if you want to watch that, if you have no idea what mastery is about, go ahead and watch that. It'll explain pretty much how it works. But the gist of it is, mastery is important. There are objectives you complete. It's like a chore list, kinda. And in doing this, you get rewards that are really good. You can go and check them out if you want to. Go to your own mastery page, go to rewards, and peep what the incentives are to do this. Now, the only thing I think I didn't mention in my last video about mastery and general tips was that doing escalation 1 through 13 is absolutely bonkers for efficiency. You get so much work done in doing that mode because, for one, the behemoths are turbo easy, and you get amplifiers to make it even easier in the process. And on top of that all, it's 6 behemoths in escalation 1 through 13, and you can do that in roughly like 4 to 5 minutes. If you're a relatively experienced player, you have some pretty good gear. 4 to 5 minutes if you're on the less experienced end with not as great gear, probably around 7 minutes. But queuing for a hunt takes time. Getting to that hunt and finding the behemoth takes time. Escalation is just like go, go, go. The behemoths are right there. So it just depends on what you want to do. Now, in saying all that, there is one thing that you should know. And I'm pretty sure the problem right now is that there's a problem right now is what you should know. And in escalation 1 through 13 and escalation 10 through 50, not all mastery counts for behemoths. And this is evident for me personally because I would be done with Drask 10 times over if it did work. Because I've done escalation so many times now that I just don't always get damage for Drask. I wasn't getting wounds for Drask. I wasn't getting part breaks for Drask. I wasn't getting all these objectives. And the same thing goes for Stormclaw. I just wasn't getting these. I wasn't getting work done on these objectives. So that's kind of rough. So just understand that at the moment, not all of your objectives, not everything you do in escalation will count towards mastery sometimes. I'm not exactly sure how this works. If someone knows in the comments, let me know. I'll pin it if I see it because something weird's going on. But I assume it'll get fixed, and when it does, escalation 1 through 13 is going to be freaking nuts, and you can go ahead and do that, because that'll get done most of the random stuff you have to do, or the longer form stuff, like 150 wounds, because it's 100, but then it's 40, and then it's 10. So it's 150 for wounds, staggers, and interrupts, all this stuff. It takes a while. But the things you can't do in escalation 1 through 13 are going to be fighting, let's say, Heroic Riftstalker. You can't fight that in escalation 1 through 13, so that'd be a bit different, right? Like this would probably be best done solo because you have to do it anyway. So that'd be like a pursuit kind of hunt. But escalation 1 through 13 is good for doing the general stuff for behemoth mastery, and also for weapons as well. Before I forget, for weapons it takes 4,500 experience to level a weapon. And that will take you pretty much 4 escalation runs of 1 through 13. If you're fighting Heroic or Heroic Plus Behemoths, it will take you around 15 hunts. So you do the math on what's most efficient for you. Personally, escalation 1 through 13 is it's hecka fast. Pardon me. Pardon my French. It's a bit faster for me. Now, to get into the builds, because you're going to need, for Behemoth Mastery, the main things for me, like I said, were getting staggers, wounds, and breaks. That was the hardest part, and also interrupts, but that just takes time. Like, interrupts aren't a big deal. Every weapon can interrupt, so that happens with time. Everything else, though, I feel is a bit rougher to get, like especially wounds and staggers. So, in saying that, I have some builds for doing this exact thing. And like I said, some of the builds are a bit late game-ish, although this build, you could change a lot of things to make it a lot more beginner-friendly. Because you already have 3 items that are beginner-friendly, which is the Hellion Chainblades, Koshai Chest, and Charik Feet. They're not like, oh, I just started the game friendly, but they're, you know, middle of the way for Dauntless. You can use this kind of gear. But this build is something that I would use for fighting pretty much whatever if I just want to like get or work on everything at the same time. Because this build has acidic +3, and this will give me wound damage on Chainblades. It cuts my part damage in half and gives me, yeah, converts 50% of part damage, or 50% of part damage into wound damage, and that's huge. That makes it so Chainblades can wound. And the huge thing here is that if you have acidic on either the hammer, axe, Chainblades, sword, or strikers, they're doing wound damage, part damage, and stagger damage. That's something that the Warpike and repeaters can't do. Repeaters don't do any stagger damage at all unless you're playing Twin Suns. It's like 14 stagger damage. Don't use Twin Suns for stagger damage. But Warpike, it does stagger damage, but not while it's wounding. Like, its light attack, which is like the pokey stabby one, that does piercing damage. It doesn't do stagger damage. So while you're wounding a part, you're not really contributing towards a stagger, which you're going to need a lot if you're working towards that kind of thing. So it's kind of rough. Whereas putting acidic on, like I said, hammer, axe, chainblade, sword, strikers, those all do stagger damage innately, and then if you have acidic, they'll be doing all 3 of the things you're going to need for those mastery objectives. This just makes it super fast. Like, it makes it beyond fast. And if you're playing in a group and your buddies use acidic too, it's good. The only time this is not suggested is if you're still going through Dauntless and you're not really sure how the behemoths work, because acidic cuts your part damage in half. Breaking parts is beneficial during a fight because it gives you overpower windows and stuff like that. So it's not the perfect thing for everybody, but if you're just working towards mastery, this is a really good build, really efficient build to use. And you can use it with any Hellion weapon you want to. I would say, though, if you're using the hammer or the axe, I would probably swap some Predator for some Wild Frenzy and call that a day. Which that would take changing the build around, but still. Now, if you're not going for a general all-purpose build and you want to work towards a specific objective, like let's say you just want to get wounds, I would use this build. But I would use this build against lesser behemoths, because if you guys don't know, you can fight the weakest variant of a behemoth, and if you're going for staggers, wounds, part breaks, they'll count. It doesn't matter what level the behemoth is, it just matters that you're fighting that behemoth. So for instance, I could fight lesser Drask and farm hecka wounds, brother. Like with this build, I have +6 barbed and +3 acidic. So barbed adds flat wound damage. If you dodge to an attack, you get 400 wound damage at +6. It's good. It's good because I need all the wound damage I can get if I'm fighting a lesser behemoth, because they have very weak parts and I want to wound them without breaking them. Because if you break a part before it's wounded, you can't wound it. At least not right now. So that is the rough stuff with that. And this build lets me get 6 wounds on lesser Drask, and I think like 4 wounds on Boreas, because Boreas has so little health, but 6 wounds on lesser Drask in like a minute 30. Like full combat time, right? Like from the moment I drop down on the island to killing it, it's like a minute 30. Getting 6 wounds. That is very efficient, very fast. It's pretty good. And like I said, if it worked in Escalation, it wouldn't matter too much. I would just run, I would run this build in Escalation and call it a day. But I just don't know if like all the objectives count right now. So this is a build I use for, or I would use the other build I showed previously for just doing all-purpose if it all counted. But for this build, I pursued Drask and I got all the wounds I needed done quick and just like really fast. And that, like, this is for wounds, right? Like, that's the main thing with this build. It's not the prettiest build in the world. Like, if you guys see the build, like, I have Hellion Chainblades, Reza Helmet, Malk Chest, and Cool Shot Gloves and Feet. I have like +3 Aether Hunter and +3 Shell Shock. I'm not using those at all, but I don't really need to change it because it doesn't matter. I'm fighting a lesser behemoths with this build. Like it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be decent, and it's decent enough. So this is a wound build I would use for farming just wounds specifically against lesser behemoths or really weak behemoths. If you're fighting anything stronger than like a lesser or maybe a normal behemoth, I would swap to something else and just slap a stick into it. You'll be fine. But if you're farming staggers, I would use a hammer first off. And the build I have right here, you can actually change a couple things, but it does have some turbo in-game stuff in case anybody's wondering. I think that's the biggest issue here is like I have some really in-game gear at the moment. But regardless, the hammer I'm using is the Galvanic Impact, which is a Malkarian hammer. And I'm choosing this because it has prismatic slots. I can use whatever cell I want to in these slots, which is pretty sick. And I can also bond it for a Stormclaw hammer. And Stormclaw has a super cool unique effect for what I'm trying to do, which is get Aether Shells without doing damage. Because if I'm applying damage to a monster and I'm not working towards a stagger, I'll kill it. So this is all for staggers, right? But Stormclaw hammer makes it so dodging through an attack, it reloads 3 Aether Charge ammo. That's dope, because I'm also using a modifier called Antique Clip, where ammo is decreased to 2, but bonus from Aether Charge ammo is increased by 300%. This makes it so I can just basically prime a hit and stagger the monster almost every time. At a certain point, the stagger threshold goes up and it takes, I think, 2 primed hits, but that's still super fast for staggers. And this let me get 8 staggers on Lesser Drask in a pretty short amount of time. Like, really short amount of time. So that's pretty sick, and I like that a lot. But the build itself has Reza Helmet, Shroud Chest, Mount Gloves, Charg Feet, and the Drask Lantern. And for potions, you can use Assault Tonics. You don't have to. You really don't have to use you don't have to use potions at all. It's just if you want to use them, it's fine too. But I don't think you're going to need that much stagger damage. Because in the perk selections, I've got +6 Conduit, Cunning, KOK, Pred, Rage, and then +3 Aetheric Attunement and Discipline. So, pretty good build. And the main thing here is KOK. And for this, the nice thing is when you dodge to an attack, you get your Aether Charge ammo from Stormclaw Hammer, right? You also get an extra 100% stagger damage on your next hit if you attack quickly enough after dodging an attack. So it works really well. Now the only tip I'll give though for this is if you want to get Aether Charge ammo for your hammer using the Stormclaw Hammer or the Stormclaw Bond, you have to be missing the shells in the first place. So when you first start the hunt, if you're fighting a monster and you're trying to farm staggers, waste your shells so you can dodge to attacks and get the Aether Charge ammo. Otherwise, it won't give you the ammo as far as I'm aware. So that's the main thing with that. But that is, I think, the video. I think I'm done talking for now. That's the video, guys. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And hopefully it helped you because I'm trying to make a couple videos. I'm doing my best. I'm kind of like grasping at straws right now. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to make that's not like a drag to create. So it's some rough stuff. But if you guys want some news on me, I've been playing some random games on my stream, by the way, at twitch.tv/OhDough. I'm playing Ori and the Blind Forest, and I'm playing games off stream like Apex because I can't stream those games, sadly. But yeah, that's a little quick form of the quick info on what's going on with me. But that's all, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Let's go, Douglas!
I'm juiced, bro. That guy just got freaking bodied. Wait.